Hello and welcome to This Month on the Railroad, my new series where I discuss each month's big train-related news in North America. This is the first episode of this series, and I hope to continue this series as a monthly thing if it's well received by my viewers. Anyways, let's begin. April 2021 was a big month for trains in North America, as we're beginning to see signs of the end of the pandemic with more people getting vaccinated and getting back to work. For the past year, traffic levels on railroads across the continent, both freight and passenger, have been way down, but for the first time in a while, traffic levels are starting to climb back up. This means that pretty soon, freight railroads are going to begin experiencing more power shortages, which tends to be a good thing for rail fans. I wouldn't be surprised to see NS leasing back some of the power they sold off at the beginning of the pandemic pretty soon. Anyways, not only was April a month in which a lot of rail traffic levels increased, but it was also a month where Amtrak received a bunch of new equipment, and other rail projects made good progress. Let's start at the beginning of April. On the 1st, the MTA announced that they finally completed fixing the last subway tunnel that was damaged by Hurricane Sandy almost 10 years ago. Better late than never, I guess. The East River F-Line tunnel was the last of the 11 river tunnels damaged by the floodwaters of Hurricane Sandy in 2012. I guess this means less delays across the system caused by this work, but obviously the MTA has much more work ahead of them than just these tunnels. On the same day, Progress Rail, previously known as EMD, closed their LaGrange, Illinois engine facility, which had been a locomotive manufacturing site until 1935. Although unfortunate, this is nothing new, as Progress Rail had plans to close this plant back in 2018. Luckily, this is not the end for Progress Rail, as they still have plants in Muncie, Indiana, and Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which are here to stay. Additionally, LaGrange will not be demolished or anything, because there will still be administrative jobs there. They are only closing the actual manufacturing floor. On April 6th, New Jersey Transit began testing one of their 25 new ALP45s, so I guess more people in New Jersey will start seeing more of the ALPs and less GP40s and other classic engines. On April 7th, Brightline announced that they were 50% complete with the construction of their new Orlando expansion. As I said a bunch of times in the Brightline High-Speed Rail Week episode, Brightline is pretty good at building high-speed rail systems in a timely manner. Also relating to high-speed rail, around the same time, Amtrak's Avelia made it up to Boston for testing at speeds of up to 165 miles per hour. On April 8th, Amtrak announced that Vermonter service would resume on July 19th, bringing passenger rail back to Vermont for the first time in a while. On April 12th, Amtrak Midwest Siemens Venture cars were spotted testing between Chicago and Effingham, Illinois, on the move powered by two matching chargers. On April 13th, Seattle's Monorail shut down its 1-mile line to upgrade the stations. The line should be back in service soon. On April 19th, the city of Long Beach, California announced that they would save donated P865 Metro car number 100. This car was slated to be scrapped, but the city decided to preserve this historic car. Later in the day, Amtrak 48 departed Chicago with the rebuilt CDot P40 that came from Amtrak's shops in Beech Grove, Indiana. This unit, number 6701, made it to Boston and eventually Connecticut in the coming days. This was the first of these engines that was transported via Amtrak, as last time when one was transported via CSX it took way too long. I guess CDot decided to spend a bit more money to get 2-day shipping via Amtrak. On April 20th, nice, Long Island Railroad announced that they would be converting some M7s to be dual-mode third-rail electric and battery-powered EMUs. They will use Siemens battery-electric equipment, and the railroad plans to test them on many of the diesel-only lines in the coming months. Even bigger news, CN announced that they would be joining the battle for KCS by making a competing bid with CP. Throughout the rest of the month, the two Canadian railroads would continue to fight over KCS. Finally, what I would consider to be the most exciting news from the 20th was that the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania announced that the Norfolk and Western 611 will be making a return this summer after its visit back in 2019. Hopefully I'll get to see it, as I'm going on my yearly Pennsylvania trip this summer when it'll be in Strasburg. On April 21st, Amtrak announced that Siemens would be the preferred builder of their 83 new intercity train sets to be used on the Northeast Corridor, Palmetto, and other routes. These new cars will replace the existing Amfleet ones. On April 22nd, CTA's new CRRC 7000 cars were spotted testing in Chicago. They look pretty cool on the inside and outside, so let's hope that they don't derail like the similar CRRC cars in Boston. On April 23rd, Metra announced that they would be converting 3 of their F40s to run off zero-emission battery power. They are to be painted in a new green livery. The first unit will be delivered halfway through 2023. On the same day, brand new Amtrak Siemens cars made their way east from the Siemens plant in Florin, California, to Amtrak shops in Beech Grove, Indiana. These cars were meant for Amtrak's Midwest services, but they were placed into storage. Finally, probably the most controversial news of the 23rd was that Union Pacific unveiled the SD70M number 1975, known as We Are One. This unit celebrates the diversity among employees on the Union Pacific. Personally, I support the idea of the locomotive, and it's cool to see that UP is making a locomotive to support diversity, but it was a missed opportunity. UP could have spent some serious time making a unique and colorful livery, and instead they went with this, which I think looks awful. On the 26th, Amtrak 100, the second of their new 50th anniversary P42s, was spotted on the Cardinal, and eventually the Capital Limited bound for Washington, D.C. This P42, number 100, is painted in a midnight blue paint scheme. Once it arrived in D.C., it would be coupled up to 46, the Phase 5 50th anniversary unit. These two P42s would then be hooked up to Veterans Unit number 642 and brought up to Philadelphia for a 50th anniversary event on the 30th. Also on the 26th, two new photos of Amtrak's ALC-42s surfaced. These things will probably make their way east in the next few weeks. On the 27th, CN ordered 75 new locomotives. This order is the first of the year for any Class 1 railroad, but the manufacturer is still unknown, probably GE. This may not seem like a big deal, but it's a sign that there's light at the end of the tunnel as the pandemic comes to a close in North America. On the 28th, the Amtrak Southwest Chief had two extra locomotives, both of which were dropped in Colorado to pick up the Avelia Liberty train set that had been testing at TTCI in Pueblo, Colorado. I guess this means that they're done with testing. This train set will be on an Amtrak ferry move from Pueblo to Hornell, New York, to be furnished at Alstom. After it's furnished, it will be delivered to Amtrak and entered into service on the Northeast Corridor. On the 28th, a Wabtec-powered BEL-44C4D locomotive number 3000 was spotted in Chicago after testing in Southern California for the past few months. I'm not sure what it's doing in Chicago, but I think it'll probably test in switching service and also on Chicago's difficult junctions and switches. Well, I guess that sums up the month of April. A lot happened, including Amtrak equipment procurement, a new heritage unit, a battle between two giant Canadian railroads for one smaller American one, and Amtrak's 50th birthday. Anyways, let me know what you think of this new series in the comments. Other than that, thanks for watching.